are done with the macromotion study and then the micromotion study, no? So now we will have the motion study, the definition, the principles. We will know that one this afternoon. And then also work measurement and then time study. How are we going to do the time study? So first, let's have the motion study. So when we say motion study, it is a part of method study where analysis of the motion of an operator or work will be studied by following the prescribed methods. So motion, from the word motion, unsa din ang motion? What do you mean by motion?
Doing an action, miss.
Doing action, doing an action,
movement.
movement. Okay, that's correct. So when we say motion, it talks about the movement of the worker. So we need to study the movement of the worker in the workplace. Okay, so there are three principles of motion study. First is the use of the human body. Second, we have the arrangement of workplace. And the third one is the design of tools and equipment. So first, let's have the use of the human body. So when possible, the two hands should begin and complete their movements at the same time. So remember, with your activity last time, di ba, katong sa akong gisend nga video, so as much as possible, when you are working, you have to use your hands simultaneously. So it's the same with the motions of the arms, it's the same with number 3. Motions of the arms should be made simultaneously. The two hands, here in number 2, the two hands should not be idle, so at the same time. So if you are using the right hand, so we are not expecting nga dapat sa gamiton sa nato sa left hand. So from the word simultaneously, pwede ra sad siya magpuli-puli. It depends on the nature of the work. So kung kinahanglan jud both hands, so that's good, no? Di siya pwede nga taas kay nga panahon na idle si left hand, taas pud og panahon nga na idle pud si right hand. The fourth one there is hand and body motions should be made at the lowest classification at which it is possible to do the work satisfactorily. Ngano kahang lowest classification man? Because there are tendencies manggo that if the company are aiming for highest classification, it doesn't talk about with the with the quality. It talks about with the nature of the work. So if highest classification, ang tendency mong ana is maunsa man ang worker, kapuyon si worker, improper posture na si worker, and at the same time magsige na naog fatigue ang worker. So as much as possible, managers, engineers, or any observers nga that will do time study, they have to look after on how they are going to do improvements nga comfortable sa worker. And next is momentum should be employed to help the worker but should be reduced to a minimum whenever it has to be overcome by muscular effort. We all know nga, 'di ba? Once we are working and then nanata sa momentum nga nagtrabaho ta, di na ta gustong disturboon. But di na siya pwede. Dapat kanang we need to avoid kana bitong momentum nga trabaho kay di ba kabantay mo kung ari ta sa eskwelahan, once gani mag-study na mo maayo and then di na mo gusto magpa-disturbo and then ang inyong style sa pag-study is nagduko na mo maayo nga kana bitang wala nay S-curve sa inyong luyo, you are not doing the right posture or the right sitting posture, and then kana ang momentum man good is maputol niya. It's because gusto mo magtuon and then mo tong posisyon na ang makakuan jud nimo kad daghan kay kag mag-grasp nga learning, so ing ana. But here in the workplace or sa workplace nga setting, dapat di jud na siya pwede. It's because sa may makuha na kana fatigue lang gihapon, magkasakit-sakit ang worker, and then di ba gina-avoid man na nato no nga magsakit-sakit ang worker. Kaysa ha, kaysa man yung message. Pa-admit daw ang uban miss. Okay, sige. Danahan. Na, ako na, nakasud na sila. Okay? So, mo to siya. Next is, continuous curve movements are to be preferred to straight line motions involving sudden and changes in directions. So, there are curved movements man no. So, as much as possible, straight line motions lang ato ang gi-follow. It's because those curved movements will lead to workers nga kanabitang basin ma-exert na noon og too much nga motion, mag-exert og too much kanang nga effort mo nga na ba. So as much as possible straight line motions lang ang ato ang i-after, no? Dili siya daghag curve. Okay? Next is ballistic. So when we say ballistic, it is free swinging. So free swinging, so movements are faster, easier, and more accurate than restricted or controlled movements. Kana. So, ang worker, you have to study the distance per operator, di ba? Dapat si operator, he or she can move freely. Dili siya dapat kana bitang may daghang obstructions. Di siya pwede nga kanang daghan kayo kana bitang mag-ali, kay dapat um, ang iyahang kwan is ma-stretch niyang arms, ma-stretch niyang arms, and then at the same time sad the height of the kwan ba the workstation area is di sad mo kwan sa iyahang mismo nga height. So there is also a standard height for that, and then the stretching of the arm, so napo na siya standard height ana. So dapat free, he or she can move freely, mora gyud na siya. Next is rhythm, or the tempo is essential to the smooth and automatic performance of a repetitive operation. The work should be arranged to permit easy and natural rhythm wherever possible. Diba? Kung nindot jud kayo ang tempo or ang dagan, na as in bisan pag repetitive operation na siya, balik-balik ang operation, so mahuman jud siya, like there is kinabitang less na problema kay good man ang rhythm. Kung man good rhythm, that means good ang flow sa worker, good ang flow sa materials, good pod ang flow sa process. Okay? 9 is work should be arranged so that eye movements are confined to a comfortable area without the need for frequent changes of focus. So kana no kanang work should be arranged. So if possible, dapat magsunod jud ng angay nga magsunod. For example, kani work 1 or operation 1, and then usa sa day mag operation 2 kay mukuan pa sa day sa operation 3. So it depends on the workstation area na gyud na siya kana bitang steps pod. So different product, different services requires different kuan pod, different work and different arrangement. So it depends on the company jud. But then again, the familiarization of the arrangement dapat sad makuha gid sa worker. Napa mo din ha? Ayun, napa?
Yes, miss.
Ah,
Yes, miss.
okay, sige.
Yes, miss.
Aminaw ra di ay. Ako lang gipaspasan ha, kay pa jud ko nilungag sa amoa bitaw. Ay hopefully nakasabot ra sad, nakasabot ra man ka ha. Nasabtan ra? Ha?
Yes, yes, miss.
Okay, okay.
Yes, ma'am.
So next principle is the arrangement of the workplace. So I think nakuha lang ni siya sa use of the human body no na natakol siya, but however, let's have first yung principle is definite and fixed stations should be provided for all tools and materials to permit habit, formation, 'di ba? Sa kung gingon gani na, if ever gani na matultulan na, for example, no, you are putting kana bitang mga spaces or mga areas nga asa nimo ibutan imong mga tools. Of course, there is a habit formation. Habit formation man gani, that means the worker can actually kana bitang find already the kanang materials ngayon kanang kinahanglanon. Di na siya kinahanglan pa masipag search. So makuha na time sa pag-searching, no? Kaya it's because na-find naman day niya iyahang kinahanglan nga materials or tools. Next is tools and materials should be prepositioned to reduce searching. So same thing. Kana ano, tools and materials should be prepositioned. So those materials nga tan-aw nimo does not need kana betong or dili nimo kinahanglan ana nga operation, then keep it. Katong mga kinahanglan kaayo nimo nga mga tools, and then ipaduol imong iandam daan kung asa mo siya dali ra nimo makabuot, no? Next is gravity fed bins and containers should be used to deliver the materials as close to the point of use as possible. Kana no? Also, when releasing the materials, um, bins or kanang mga containers nga kana bitong dapat maduol jud siya nga di na bitaw mo travel pa mo transport pa og taas-taas si worker. So as much as possible duol lang sa iyaha. Ang siguro ang pag-release lang ana ari na siya sa katong material handling na. So ang kuan lang ana sa ilahan na pud ang problem. Ang pagkuan lang ang concern lang ani niya is materials should be near to the area of the worker. Next is tools, materials, and controls should be located within a maximum working area and as near to the worker as possible. So it's very similar to the number 3, no? Next is materials and tools should be arranged to permit the best sequence of motions. Kana. So i-arrange nimo siya according to imo ba siya i-classify as kaninga kuan mga screw ni siya, kani pud siya kay mga resistors ni siya, kani pang electrical ni siya. So sorting, you need to do the sorting. Imong i-kuan ba kanang i-classify siya according to its use and according to its sizes or design or dimensions kana. Next is drop deliveries or ejectors should be used wherever possible so that the operative does not have to use his hands to dispose of finished parts kana no. Although nanay containers na kanabitang mabutangan sa mga materials nga nagpadung, dapat sad naa si mga bins nga para labayanan, no, para duol ra pud siya kay para mas easy access po siya sa worker. So mura ra sad gud nagkanang kuan nga dapat ipaduol gyud nimo siya like sa akong case karon no di jud ko katrabaho if nagklase ko wala ko'y tapad nga beans or wala ko'y tapad nga kanang labayanan, diba? Kay kung imo ra napasagdan dinha mga magkakalat-kalat ra na imong mga gamit. So mo sad na dapat naapod kay mga kuanan kanang drop deliveries kana kung mahuman na pud imong item, no, kung kuan na siya kana bitang good as product na good siya. So pwede man sad nga sa style kana bitang sa style sa Robinson mostly sa company mong good ilara na sad na more siya padung paubos and there is beans na sad segregated for those finished products na. So kana niya and then tukmod-tukmod na lang pud na siya muraragya pud siya na siya og kanang push carts nga ilang mabutangan sa ilang finished products. Okay? 7. Provision should be made for adequate lighting and a chair of type and height to permit good posture should be provided. The height of the workplace and seat should be arranged to allow alternate standing and sitting. So kani um, the company should give the right proper lighting. Dili siya lightning ha, lighting is kilat. Lighting So pila day ang allowable lux kung ato man makagamit man ta ng light meter no sa ergonomics nato pohon ergonomics light meter nga tool ato siyang i-test kung pila di ay ang lux nga gihatag ni suga or any kind of kanang bulb nga gigamit sa kanang kuan sa workplace, pila di allowable or pila di ang standard kay para di sad kung sobra ra sad kahayag mao kaunsa man maka eye fatigue sad na siya no, makasakit na siya sa mata. And at the same time ang chair pod, so you have to you have to provide also kana bitang mga standard chair in which kay kita puan man kita Pinoy man ta, so there are a lot of standard chair available in the market naman no, nga which is base na pud sa ato ang height in which makabutang ta sa atong tiil sa ground no, and then ang kuan pud niya for the back is makasupport pud siya sa back ana, and then makalingkod pug tarong atong kuan nga para sa gikan sa bat. So there is a distance nga ano, distance from the butt from the until to the back of the back part or your backbone, so makasupport siya. So there are a lot of standards nga kuan ana. Okay, so para sa comfortability sa worker. Next is design of tools and equipments. So the color of the workplace should contrast with that of work and thus reduce eye fatigue. No, kanang grabe na kayo ka colorful nga workplace. Likayan jud na kay makasakit mo jud na siya sa mata. As much as possible katong maka freshen up sa mata like color green na siya kanang dili mga grabe kahayag ba. No, di ay lang sad putong grabe sad kangiog, isa na siya pwede. At least baka ng balance po ihang contrast in which good pa sad siya sa mata. Okay? Next is the hands should be relieved of all work of holding the workpiece where this can be done by a jig or fixture or foot operated device. No, there are a lot of kanang wait sa kailangan sa doon mong gugay niya mo as airport. Wala langas guys tanan. Ano mo aging kuan aeroplano o helicopter. Okay. So again, there are a lot of equipment mano or machines nga pwede jud maka-hold sa materials. Dapat like for example alitas mga metal, di man siya ingon nga dapat masigi kag hold jud sa mga metals kay bugat de sad siya. So you need equipments, you need machines to hold the materials or the item. Next is two or more tools should be combined where possible. Again, so if tanaw nimo nga ang tools is just the same with these tools, then you can combine actually. So kung para cut day na siya, so ato sa sa cut. Yeah, kung para drill day siya, o so ipundo sa di mo siya sa drill. So ing ana. Next is where each finger performs some specific movement, as in typewriting, the load should be distributed in accordance with the inherent capacities of the fingers, di ba? We all know nga these fingers no, kung arita og keyboard and typewriter nana jud ni siya naka-indicate nga mga letters. No, so hopefully ing ana pud mumuda og kana betang kuan per na sometimes no di man jud nato kalikayan nga di jud nato ma-follow. I don't know exactly good sa kuan sa fingers sa about sa keyboard, pero murag gina-follow, so nakakwadra ba mo anang unsay letters sa fingers? Unsa
Yes, miss.
okay.
Positioning.
In keyboard wait sa okay. So kung arita sa left hand ang kaning kuan nato pinakagamay nga hand, so mo ni siya ang 1 QA shift and control no, and then arita sa kuan mag-start ta left hand and then pinakagamay di ba ring finger sunod is 2 W S and Z sakto ko, no? And then 3 is E, D, and X. Kaning kuan point finger kay 4 and 5, and then R, T, F, G, and C, V. So, muna na. And then, ang kaning thumb is, kuan ni siya, wa ni siya gamit.
Space.
No use na siya, no use, kuan na, wala na siya use for typing, ang left.
Space, miss.
Ang space imong gipasabot is the right hand. So, ang thumb is space bar, the right hand na ta, space bar. And then point finger is 6, 7, Y, U, H, G, and then B, N. Ang kaning middle finger is 8, I, K, and M. And then ang next is the ring finger. We have 6, 9, 0, L, and then comma. And then the last finger, which is the little finger, is 0, P, and then semicolon, and then shift, control, enter. No? Mo na siya. So, as much as possible, there is a good distribution, there is a balanced distribution in terms of kanabitang the loading of your fingers. Kay kung sige lang nimo gamit imuhang kuan, like di siya intended untaan na nga letters, so magsakit yun na ang kamot. Bantay man jud mo ano no kanang namoy buhaton sa inyong kuan, most especially if faces nya, if wrong ka imuhang pagkuan sa proper finger placement. Um, Wala kay kuan da improper finger placement, kana magsakit jud imong kamot, which is kuan na siya, finger fatigue na dayon, no? Okay, next is handles such as those used in screwdrivers and cranks should be designed to permit maximum surface of the hand to come in contact with the handle. Okay? So, kani siya no, ang kaning design of tools and equipments is kuan jud siya, related jud kayo siya sa ergonomics. Nga naman, you have to design a screwdrivers, di ba? We have here the design of screwdrivers nga kana bitang kuan, pa-circle siya. So nanasad karon nga bagong screwdrivers nga gikuan siya, gi-intended siya to curve so that makuha diri ang kanabitang dapit sa palm nato. Tan-awa akong kamot. Nako sayo, kana. Kakuan mo ani kani dinhi. Asa naman ko? Nag-loading akong video. Okay, here. Kana no? Nakita akong kamot.
Yes,
Oo.
miss.
Nice screwdrivers karon nga ga-design siya. Ang nag-curve style siya kay di ba diri nato mura siya pa-curve. That's why murag inig handle na nato dili na magbabaw. Curve na siya nga form. So usa sad na naputi katong long nose, no. Ang design sa long nose is the same siya, paana pud sa kuan. Karon na nasay design nga straight siya, straight ang babaw niya, curve ang sa ubos. So kana ergonomically designed sa na siya. It's because ang kuan niya ba, ang concern na niya ang palm nga bibitaw kay magsakit kay because of the design na kuan naman siya kay diba ang ato magong force is dapat diri sa kuan kung magkontag lungnos dapat diri. So kani siya tigpugong lang, no? So mo na nga halon di aron makakuan sa ba dili kay magrabihan ang both ang tanan jud nga palm, at least man lang kani lang kay it's because 4 versus 1 nga finger, diba kani may mag force and then kani may magkuan, kani may maaoy mag hold. So kana. So actually interesting jud kaayo ang kana bitawng subject jud sa mga IE kay gamit jud kay siya sa production, as in grabe jud siya ka dako og role si IE in terms of um, designing the machine, designing the product, designing the area, designing tanan nga kanang makita nimo nga tan-aw nimo problem jud siya sa worker, pwede jud kay na siya. So maka-improve jud kaayo ang IE ana. Okay, next is levers, crossbars, and wheel bars. should be in such position that operator can manipulate them with least body change and with greatest mechanical advantage. Kana no? Um, nakoy nakuanan sa una nga mga equipments nga kanabitang na siya sa babaw na makbali naka-attach na siya sa workstation area nga gi-attach siya sa babaw, so it doesn't need nga mangita pa ka sa ilawom, mubira pa ka sa kuan na siya sa babaw in which reachable siya, and then dali na lang sad kay siya birahon kay inigbira magamit nimo siya, and then pwede sad siya mabalik. So mga ingana no, grabe grabe naka-advantage karon kay para lang gid ang worker is comfortable gid siya nga kanang grabe ka kuan ba ma-efficient nagmaayo iyang trabaho. Okay? Do you have any question with the principles of method study? Yes. With the motion study. Do you have any question? John?
Wala kami.
Wala pa, Han? Wala pa
Yes,
ka?
miss.
Wala pa. Sige, let me continue. Okay, next is the work measurement. So, we also, again no, no, manamata to mga recording techniques na to in of motion study, katong may macro motion and the micro motion, no? So, now we will have the work measurement. So, work measurement is also called by the name time study, no? Work measurement is absolutely essential for both planning and control of operations. So again, without good measurement data, we cannot determine the capacity of the facilities, or it is not possible to meet the delivery dates, or we can identify the cost kana no. So we are not in the position to determine the rate of production, also the utilization and efficiency. So it may not be possible to introduce nga kanang mga incentive schemes and standard costs for budget control. So it's very important for us nga we need to do the time study or the work measurement kay nga naman para makakuan ta, maka-identify ta unsa mao din performance sa atong workers, and then alkansi na bata or nagkuwang bata sa paghatag sa sweldo. So kana it is very a big help that work measurement must be identified or must be measured well. So kana kung matarong lang ni siya ang kanang pag time study, as in it really contributes a bigger impact sa company. Okay?
Oh, oh. Sa Janie form ng galit mo ang gamhan.
Ha?
Sorry, ma'am, na
Ah, okay. So next is objectives of work measurement. The objectives of work measurement are to provide a sound basis for. First is comparing alternative methods. Again, so if we have different methods, diba? As I've said earlier, different area, different workstation, different methods requires different methods, no? So if this kind of method one does not kuan fit for this certain operation, then you can use your alternative method, which is the method 2. So kana. So you have to provide a lot of methods, and then you have to choose the best method for that certain operation. Next is assessing the correct initial manning, or shall we say manpower requirement planning. So sometimes it is also called human resource planning. Unsa may pasabot ana, you have to put the right number of people, no? And then right kind of people kana. And saman, right kind of people at the right place at the right time, no? Doing the right things for which they are suited for the achievement kana aron. Di ba namtay ko ano naman tay kasabihan nga do it right the first time. The same thing in the manpower requirement planning. You have also to put the right people at the right job. Wala siya. kana tanan mo kuan ra gyud na siya, magsabay-sabay ra gyud na siya. Do it right the first time. If you want to do it right the first time, then do putting the right people at the right job is your best option. Okay, next is planning and control, and then realistic costing, financial incentive schemes. Okay, so from the word incentive schemes, okay, um, di ba, ang after jud, dahil sa kanay, inok ni Kilin present. Later on, magkuan ko, mag-attendance. Present kayo. Okay, so again, financial incentive scheme, so, um, ang kuan jud ani niya, ang main purpose jud aning incentive scheme is to motivate the worker. Ang saon man. So in a way nga muhatag kanila og monetary monetary rewards para sa ilang performance nga ilang gi-exert in that certain job, no? So kana, you have also to provide financial incentive for your workers, okay? Next is delivery date of goods. Kana ron, you will not commit anything nga di gyud ay mo makadeliver kayo. Sige mo pasalig-salig nga you will give 7 days lead time, and then again di day kaya, no? So as much as possible, if you give a certain time, then you have to deliver it on time. Kana lang kay sayang kayo ang customer. It really gives you the profit that you need, but however dili ka maka-deliver on time. So kana ang salig sa customer, mawa na dayon. Okay? Next is cost reduction and cost control, and next is identifying substandard workers. So unsa man din mga substandard workers? From the word substandard, unsa din na siya? What is substandard? Huh? What is substandards?
Kanang below the usual standard, miss.
Okay, that's good, no? So when we say identifying substandard workers, you need to um, identify below the standard workers. Okay, it's because um, makakuan mo gud sa imong objectives, maka-failure jud sa imong objectives. So that is why effective managers needs to communicate with their employees. So kay para ma-obtain na to ang atong objectives, kay kung ato lang sila pasagdan sa ilang gitrabaho and then wala na siya ni meet sa ato ang gustong mahitabo, and then it's useless, no? So um, dapat iato sila i-train, no, naman ni last dere training new employees, kana dili lang kaay new employees lang atong i-train, kay actually bisan pag new employees, wait sa ha, bisan pag new employees na siya, um, na tendency manggod nga si old employees is kana bitang kuha na kay siya kanang kalma na lang, uh, kuha na kay siya ka it's because dugay na ka siya anak nga certain job, so magkuha na lang kana bitang unsa gina nga term ha, basta ka nang okay ra kay niya kay he doesn't need to learn new things, it's because karaan na siya nga mo jud na siya puno ig OJT ninyo, ig abot ninyo sa kanang mga lain-lain nga company, makasugat jud mug daghan kayo nga mga employees nga karaan, and then if magara-gara mo dito og kanapitang mag time study as in awayon jud mo ana nila kay it's because karaan na sila, moingon na sila ay may tudlo kay dugay na mi dinhi, makakaraan na mi naniguwang na mi dinhing dapitan ya mo tudlo ka nga bag-o pa ka, anaon dayon mo ana, diba? Okay, next is techniques of work measurement. We have there, for the purpose of work measurement, work can be regarded as repetitive work. So unsa man ning mga repetitive work, it's like operations, no, nga continuously nga repeated na siya, during time more kana bitang gabalik-balik nila nga trabaho kana, and then we also have the non-repetitive work. So kana more siya bag-o na sad, lahi na po change, sige na lang change ba, mag-change din og machine, mag-change over din ba, it's because dili man siya parehas og operation. So manay term change over dayon. Next is naa pa si Mary Ann. Mary Ann, naa ba siya? Nakasuba si Mary Ann? Wala? Okay.
Wala si Auntie Ann, miss.
Lagi, bitaw. Okay, here. So, various techniques of work measurement are time study, synthesis, work sampling, predetermined motion and time study, and the last one is the analytical estimating. Let's have first the time study. So, a work measurement technique for recording the times and rates of working for the elements of a specified job carried out under specified conditions and for analyzing the data so as to determine the time necessary for carrying out the job at the defined level of performance. So, in other words, uh, measuring the time through stopwatch no is called time study. So kung magamit na ganitag stopwatch kana time study na dayon ang panganaala. Next is synthetic data. So it is a work measurement technique for building up the time for a job or spans of the job at a defined level of performance by totaling element times obtained previously from the time studies on the other jobs containing the elements concerned or from synthetic data. So, um, from the word synthetic, so it is like a data that is artificially created, no, rather than being generated in the actual event. So it is often created with the help of algorithms and is used for a wide range of activities, including a test data for new products and tools, and then for model validation, and also kanang mga AI model training. So unsa gani ng AI? Unsa na? What does it mean for AI? AI. AI is unsa man? AI. Wala mo ka ba?
Artificial intelligence, ma'am.
Okay, that's good, James, no? So, kasagaran aning synthetic data is magamit sila mga artificial intelligence modeling to identify the standard time. Kana, no? Or to study or to do the work measurement. Kana ron. Next is work sampling. So, it is a technique in which a large number of observations are made over a period of time of one or group of machines, processes, or workers, no? So, kung mana manggod ta atong time study, ang gikuanan lang nato is usa lang ka buok or the motion of the worker. Pero, lain-lain og observer. Whereas, kung mana tag work sampling manggod, ang advantage niya is much cheaper jud siya compared to time study and production study. It's because only one analyst can perform work sampling, and then observers does not someone require much training. So it is more useful in non-repetitive and indirect jobs. So kaning work sampling is katong mga non-repetitive nga trabaho. Next is predetermined motion study or PMTS. So a work measurement technique whereby times established for basic human motions classified according to the nature of the motion and conditions under which it is made are used to build up the time for for a job at a defined level of performance. So it is frequently used to perform labor minute costing, no? Kana mga labor minute costing mo na siya gitawag ka ng mga piece rates or mga pakyaw-pakyaw or incentive and labor by quantifying the amount of time required to perform the specific task. We also need to have the like unang predetermined time standards nga kanabitang muka-establish og mga basic time to which it is added agreed allowances kanaron, and then for rest and kanang mga relaxation like machine delay, kanang contingency allowance, and then thereby providing standard time for any given process. The last one is analytical estimating. Work measurement technique being a development of estimating whereby the time required to carry out elements of a job at a defined level of performance is estimated partly from knowledge and practical experience of the elements concerned and partly from synthetic data. So kaning si analytical estimating, ang iyaha ani is iyang i-broken down into basic components ang operations or elements. And then ang iyahang kuan, they are estimated based on the experience of the work. So kung nahimo na nila before, sumo na lang to ilang basihan karon. So ing ana iyang kuan sa analytical estimating. So di siya ingon nga magkinahanglan og actual event, like pwede sa siya magkuan og at based sa synthetic data. Ang iyaha lang kanang mas mo prefer siya sa katong past experiences nga ilahang nabuhat with that certain kind of operation or with that certain kind of work. Okay? Work measurement techniques and their applications, no? Na-mention na ni ganina, but then again, ato siyang i-table kay para mas masabtan. So, time study, again, for short cycle repetitive jobs, and then widely used for direct work. And then unit of measurement is centiminute, or shall we say 0.01 minute. Synthetic data, centiminute siya, the same with the time study. Short cycle repetitive jobs. Work sampling, long cycle jobs, mga heterogeneous operations. And then unit of measurement is minutes. MTM or katong PMTS, so kana no, manual operations confined to one work center, and then TMU, kaysa ako sang ikuan ha, TMU. So time measurement unit na ang TMU, no. Kumuha na tag 1 TMU, 1 hour, ano na lang, 1 hour, that is equivalent to 100,000 TMU or kanang time measurement unit na siya. Kumuha na taog 1 minute, ihang kuan TMU is 1,667. Kung 1 second, 27.8 iyahang TMU. So kana na siya iyahang conversion. Next, there is the analytical estimation. So this is used for those short cycle non-repetitive job, and then the unit of measurement is through minutes. Okay. Next is the time study. So time study is also called work measurement, diba? Work measurement is called time study. Karon gibali na pud niya. Time study is also called work measurement. So it is also essential for both planning and control of operations. So according to British Standard Institute, time study has been defined as the application of techniques designed to establish the time for a qualified worker to carry out a specified job at a defined level of performance, no? So, stopwatch time is the basic technique for determining accurate time standards. So, again, gibalik-balik ra gyapon stopwatch. So, I'm not requiring you to buy stopwatch. Cell phones can do gyapon the part if mag-time study na mo pohon. Ang ako lang sigurong gustong mapalit ninyo is the Lego. Kailan mo ng Lego nga kuan duwa?
Yes, miss.
Oo. I want you to buy Lego lang siguro. Barato naman sa dinuon ng stopwatch. Anyways, magamit man sa ninyo puhon ang stopwatch. Mas okay siguro no kung stopwatch lang atong gamiton. Kamo asa man mo ay noon makaless jud kung cellphone lang. Pero okay ra jud sa cellphone. Ah, mag-video lang mo and then tan-awon lang ninyo ang oras. Pwede ra jud kaayo na siya. Sige ha, para alternative kuha na lang solution nga di bitaw ta makagasto. So okay ra ko ana. Okay? Next is steps in making time study. First is you have to select the work to be studied. Kana, mamili jud mo og unsay nganang gusto ninyong studyhan. And then next is obtain and record all the information available about the job. Now, kung nanamoy napilian nga kana bitong kanang gusto ninyong studyhan, you have to you have to kana bitong gather all the information kay basi hindi ay walay problema ana nga area, and then study mo, no? So you have to get some information from the operator, and then the operator nga handling ana nga machines, and then those personnel nga handling those process. So kana imo siyang pangutan-on specific or mga specific questions nga tan-aw nimo gamit sa imong pag-study, no? Next is break down the operations into elements. Kana ron we have bigger operations, mura siya topic siya, title siya. Now you will need to break down into elements. Kanang elements kuan na siya, like the activities nga kuan, for example magbuhat og sandwich katong last time activity, that is the operation sandwich. Dayon ang atong elements is kato na dayong giunsa na nato siya on how are we going to do the sandwich. Kana, so an element is an instinct part of a specified activity composed of one or more fundamental motions, no? Selected for convenience of observation and timing. Next is measure the time by means of a stopwatch taken by the operator to perform each element of the operation. Either continuous method or snapback method of timing could be used. No, kana aron mao man gud na ang makuan gud sa kuan, magamit jud ang katubitang kanang stopwatch kay para gid mahunong nimo siya, or it's either continuous baka ha pero nagkuan ka sa kuan ano ba imo ra siyang ipangpang bitaw, no? Nya then kung continuous ra pud siya then ma-reset ana naa siya ing ana nga kuan. I don't know sa cellphone kung pwede basad siya. For anyways, mora gid akong best suggestion, i-video na lang and then tan-awon na lang gid ang kuan. And then identify din nimo ang elements. Tan-aw ra nimo ang time. Okay? Next is, at the same time, assess the operator's effective speed of work relative to the observer's concept of normal speed. So this is called performance rating. Again, there are a lot of methods that, para ma-identify na to ang performance rating. Ang kuan jud ana niya is, for example, the company sets standards nga dapat ang normal gyud nga trabaho for this certain job nga mo nagihatag sa company is 100% ang dapat i-perform niya. Karon si worker ang ma-exert ra man niya nga performance is just 80%. So you have to divide the normal nga kanabitang gihatag sa company. So 80 divided by 100. So that is his performance rating. So it depends on company to company if pila ilahang basihan di ay sa performance. There are a lot of standards jud already set in each organization. So magkalain-lain yun na siya. Kay naman sa gibutang nga ana sa company nga ang kuan lang nila is 85% lang, and then 90%, 95% to 100%. So magkalain-lain gid siya. Next is adjust the observed time by rating factor to obtain normal time for each element. So how are we going to do the normal time? So here we are given the formula normal time is equals to the observed time. So kanang observed time kanang the moment nga na-observe ra nimo mo nang orasa times the rating, which is the performance rating, over 100. Rating over 100, okay? And then add suitable allowances to compensate for fatigue, personal needs, contingencies to give standard time for each element. So later on ako na siya explain unsa din yung mga allowances ha, para dili mo maglibog. And then compute allowed time for the entire job by adding elemental standard times, considering frequency of occurrence of each element. So kana kung gabalik-balik na di ay ang elements, so you have to also to assess basin di ay um, dili siya necessary, no? So mo na i-improve nimo siya, and then make a detailed job description. So job description kanang mura ra sa nag-identify nimo, dapat di ay mao gid ni ang karabitang the nature of the work, and then this will be or ibutang tag this certain product mo ni mo dapat i-perform. So these are the list of the job nga imong buhaton or the activities kana no, the description of the activities, describing the method for which the standard time is established. Next is test and review standards wherever necessary, because maybe your standard is not the standard na may gusto sa company, or your standard is not really the standard to the market. So kana imo gyapon sa na siya i-validate. So standard time may be defined as the amount of time required to complete a unit of work under existing working conditions, using the specified method and machinery kana, and then by an operator able to work in a proper manner and at a standard pace kana, mga standard ra gihapon ang gi-after. Okay, next, computation of standard time. So basic constituents of standard time are elemental, which is the observed time, performance rating to compensate for difference in pace of working. So again, different company requires different performance rating. Relaxation allowance, interference and contingency allowance, policy allowance is the last one. So these are the component standard time. So as you can see in the figure, OT there stands for the observed time. PRF, that is performance rating factor. And then NT, which is the normal time. NT, kana ron. And process allowances is PA, RPA, rest and personal allowances. Special allowances for SA, then POA, policy allowances. Now, let's talk about unsa dining allowances. So, the normal time for an operation does not contain any allowances for the worker. It is impossible to work throughout the day even though the most practicable effective method has been developed. Okay? Nga naman dining allowances, these are given to workers. Kaya it's because bisan pag unsa naka-perfect imuhang kuan din ha, imong area din ha, bisan pag unsa nakanindot imong method din ha. However, si worker is not a robot. Si worker gusto jud na niya nga mopahuway sa at least gabay. Kay bisan pa ibutan ta 8 hours lang or 7 hours lang imong duty, it's really impossible nga wag dili jud ka magkinahanglag allowance. Again, dili ka robot, ang tao is dili robot, so you have to give allowances, no? So what are the kinds of allowances man nga itong na-mention later ganina earlier? So relaxation, first is the relaxation allowance. So when we say relaxation allowance, so it is calculated so as to allow the worker to recover from fatigue. So there are two types of relaxation allowances. So first is the fixed allowance and the variable allowance. So first, under the category of fixed allowance, we have the personal needs allowance and allowances for basic fatigue. Personal needs allowance kato ng mga like ni drink kag water, ni smoke ka, nang hugas ka sa kamot, no? So, unsa pa may lain? Sa pakailain ana.
Mag-CR.
Yeah, that is the best, no? Personal needs jud kay na nato mag-CR. So mo nagingon ganina nga, it's very impossible bisan pag unsa na kanindot din ha, imong ma-provide jud sa imong workstation. Ang tao mangihi man jud na, di ba? Mag-CR man jud na, there is emergency man jud na kinahanglan gid ana. So that is why to be fair enough sad nga kuan nga siya percentage, although lain-lain siya, 2% man ang babae, 7% for women, and 5% for men. So, mas dako siya 2%. Kaya nga naman ka ha, it's because si girl is more prone to, kana, kung aritag ka na bitang kuan, dali ka siya masakit. Kung puga na nimo imuhang kanang kasi aron din ha, mas dali gid masakit ang girl. Samot nagkahiun na kay ka. So, kana, may UTI na hinuon ka. Kaya it's because for some reasons pod nga na. So most of nag-set sa company 7% for the personal needs of the women and then 5% for the personal needs of the men. So I hope it is not unfair, no? Kasi matanaw ninyong unfair din na siya ba, but then again it's not, no? Next is allowances for basic fatigue. So this allowance is given to compensate for energy expended during working. So a common figure considered as allowance is 4% of the basic time. It's just like kana bitang mo kuan baka mo ron mo kana bitang mag mo kuan na sa ba mo relax sa gamay kana no kana mag stretching na siya. So you are given 4% nga fixed allowance ana, 4%. The next uh, type is the variable allowance. So variable allowance is allowed to ako say accept si Anne. So variable allowance is allowed to an operator who is working under poor environmental conditions that cannot be improved. So it added stress and strain in performing the job. So here, for the variable allowance, magkalain-lain yun na siya. It's like kanabitang mura gihapon, organization ra gihapon na siya. Depende yun ano kay there are a lot of man good kanang mga company nga ang condition is not really good, dili kay siya conducive good in working. So kana mga variable allowance, it depends on the company pila ilang ihatag ana nga percentage. Next is the interference allowance. Nana si Ana kasud na. Nakasud na si Ann.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Wait sa kadyutang pasiga sa kong suga. Kay niog na kay diri. Hilamok na ko. Wait lang kadyot sa. Okay. The next one here is the interference allowance. So it is an allowance of time included into the work content of the job to compensate the operator for the unavoidable loss of production due to simultaneous stoppage of two or more machine being operated by him. Anaron, before, di ba, nagisgot mata atong man machine nga chart, and then ang kuan pod ato mo sa to'y gamit no kung naay kuan na to kana bitang magkaguba-guba na kay na may kuan na tendency nga operator maghandle siya og 2 to 3 machines. So kato tagaan gyapon sa tunin mo siya interference allowance, no dapat nasa siya allowance in order for him to adjust pod until makahuman pod siya sa iyang trabaho. Okay? And sa kanang kuan-an, sa Mitsumian, pila may allowable allowances ninyo and then unsa nga type of allowance ang gihatag?
Kuan, ma'am, sa kanang per operation
Oo.
or
Like,
kanang
commonly lang, mga
kung naay machine, kung naay machine, ma'am, example, lima ka machine.
sa usa ka operator.
Oo, sa usa ka operator, kanang wala ko kakuan kung pilay i-allowed niya, ma'am, kay mostly sa among machine kay wala may kanang breakdown na kuan kaayo.
Kana no. So kana, thank you Ann. So makuan jud na nimo interference allowance once kana bitang masigi siya kahunong-hunong kay lagi due to kana magkaguba-guba gid siya and then need siya proper maintenance. And then maabirya ba agud na. So at least pa dili isa nimo matagaan o kana bitang kuan nga sala jud sa operator. It's because naman tay gihatag nga interference allowance at least ba makabawi-bawi sad siya. no, to finish kay ato ba yung after kay to create the standard time. Di ba nakalikayan yun. So, pero kung dili isad, o dili siya ka magbutang og interference allowance. Pero katong mga complicated kaayo nga halos magkaguba-guba na lang jud ang mga machines kay there are products mga complicated jud kaayo no. So yeah, makakuan jud siya, maka-cause jud siya og kanang guba gid sa machine. So kana imo sa naibutang ang interference allowance. Next, there is contingency allowance. A contingency allowance is a small allowance of time which may be included in a standard time to meet legitimate and expected times of work or delays. So some of the examples calling for contingency allowance are tool breakage involving removal of tool from the holder and all other activities to insert new tool into the tool holder. Mahitabo ni siya kana bitong sa mga non-repetitive nga kuan, non-repetitive job, no? Kung for example, ning gamit ka ani nga kuan kay because it is the process mo ni ang process for the kanang kuan niya. Next na pud kay lahi na pud ay mo buhaton. So that is the right time nga laino na pud niya ang tools, laino na pud niya ang machine. So bali mag-change over na sad ba kay non-repetitive man iyang job, no? So mana mausab jud siya. So you have to give contingency allowance ana. Next is power failures kana og small duration. So power failures kay dapat ang company jud no mag-provide jud dayon na og kuan kana bitang generator kay para maka-avoid jud ana mga power failures. So mostly sad kana mga dagkong company maka-provide jud ana kay kabantay ka nang sa mga SM. Mapaw na siya kadjut pero dayon makapana dayon no masiga na dayon same ba sa Mitsumi ano nga mukuan sa dayon mo
Yes, ma'am.
oo
Grabe kay og generator, ma'am.
oo
Daghan
kay
kaayo.
grabe na mga generator nga operator so paspasad kay na sila makakuan di jud na pwede kay kabaw mo dagko be kay dagko be kay nagkita ng Mitsumi unya mag power failure lang sus patay gid sa customer.
Kuan dayon, ma'am. Ang loss dayon, ma'am, kay minilyon.
Oh, kana minilyon na dahil ha gamayng oras nimong kuan, minute lang,
Um,
oo. Kana dako na kay nagmakuha sa company. Okay, the last one there is obtaining the necessary tools and gadgets from central tool store. Karon, kung ang kuan is not available sa imong company ang kanabitang tools nga imong gamiton and then kinahanglan pa ka mokuha adto sa lain nga store. So, you have to give or contingency allowance should not exceed 5%. So magpaabot man ka kanang imo pa man kuanon kay wala man din ha, dili man siya available sa imong area, di ba? Okay. Wala jud kay specific kung pila jud mga allowances allowed sa inyo. Like for example, personal ay noon dili man gud ka part sa kuan no sa kanabitang process nga kuan sa process engineering nga kuan department.
kanang kuan, manggod na siya, ma'am. Kanang sa equipment na dapita.
Ay dili kuan ni siya time study na ni siya na more setting standard time.
Sa amo ma'am kay na divide man gud amo ang engineering department, ma'am ya. Mostly kay ang inana na mga kuan kay sa equipment engineering man.
Okay. Maayo kay mas kuan nila mas gi-after nila ang equipment. Kay sagana man
Oo.
gud ano kay kanang tawag no relationship between the operator and equipment manggod no. Dako kayo
Oo.
after. Mausad. Sige, thank
Mm.
you. Next, let's have the policy allowance. So this will be the last allowance. Policy allowance are not the genuine part of the time study and should be used with utmost care and only in clearly defined circumstances. So the usual reason for making the policy allowance is to line up standard times with requirements of wage agreement between employers and trade unions. So the illustration 1. So assuming that the total observed time for an operation of assembling an electric switch is 1 minute, if the rating is 120%, so if the performance rating kuno is 120%, see, lapas pa siya nun, exert siya og too much jud nga performance. Find normal time. If an allowance of 10% is allowed for the operation, determine the standard time. Okay, now, we need to compute the normal time first. So, unsa ganito yung normal time?
Observed time science
Observation or
rating
break
for 100.
rate over 100.
Okay, that's good. So, when we say normal time is equals to observed time times the rating eh, ka-straight sad ma'am over
100.
100. Okay, so that's it. So, unsa na ito unang buhaton? So, pila man na observed time?
1
1
minute.
minute.
Okay, that's correct. So, we have 1 and then,
Times 120.
okay,
120 over 100.
okay,
120
120
over 100.
over
100.
100. Okay, pila man na ron?
1.20
Okay, that
2
is,
minute. 1.20 minute.
okay, that's good. So, 1.20 minute. Diba? So, that is our normal
Yes.
time. Wait sa. Uh, NT. Okay, next is, we are also asked if an allowance of 10% kuno is allowed for the operation, we need to determine the standard time. We need to determine, wait sa ha. Okay, now let's get the standard time. How are we going to compute for the standard time? Pila man na ron? So, standard time is equals to the normal time plus the allowances. Okay, plus the allowances. So, that means standard time
1.6.
is equals to, our normal time is 1.20 plus pila man to ang
10%. 10%.
pila?
10%.
10%? Wait. So, kung natay allowance, wait sa ha, kung natay allowance nga 10%, so, for us to get the normal time, so, ato ibutang ha, allowance at 10%, that means 120, wala to? Okay, times,
Times 10
times 10
over 100.
over 100. 100. So, pilam ni siya.
0.12.
Okay, 0.12. Next is the standard time na. Standard time. So, kato kong gingon din na, standard time
Equals
is equals to the normal
normal plus
time
allowance.
plus
1.30.
plus allowance.
plus allowance.
Okay.
So, pila? 1 point,
One
sorry,
one fifty
1.20
plus
plus
So,
0.12.
0.12,
That is equals to,
1.32.
132.
okay, that is 1.32 minutes. Okay, so, kana, mo na iyahang standard time daw for assembling an electric switch. Mo ba to? Electric switch. Okay, so 1 minute man iyahang observed time. So, karon na siya standard time nga 1.32 including the allowances nga gihatag sa company. Okay? Nasabtan. Next, let's have an illustration 2 para mahumanta sa itong discussion today. And then we will have an exercise. Tomorrow na lang. Tomorrow na natin exercise. Okay, kaya para maka-edit pa sad ko sa video. Ngayon, ako ma-post sa kuan. Okay, let's have an illustration 2. So, an operator manufactures 50 jobs in 6 hours and 30 minutes. If this time includes the time for setting his machine, calculate the operator's efficiency. So, standard time allowed for the job was setting time is equals to 35 minutes and production time per piece is equals to 8 minutes. Unsaon kana nato eh? What do we need to do? Ha? Unsa kay una natong buhaton? 'Di ba? As you can see, we have 35 plus 8, no? Setting time is 35 for the standard time ba? For the standard time, we have 35 plus 8 times 50. Kay mo man ang 50 jobs. So 50 jobs in 6. Sige, atos ang hinahinayon. So, we have standard time for manufacturing 50 jobs. So 50 jobs. So that means equals 35 plus 8 times 50. So pila man na ron? That is
To 150.
hmm?
To 150.
435.
Okay, that's 4
35.
35.
35.
Giuna ni mo 35 plus 8 no? Hala. 45 sige, pila man naka hours karon? Ato na i-convert. Diba nato diri 6 hours, 50 jobs kuno 6 hours and 30 minutes. Pila man yung 435?
7.
7. Ma'am, pwede
715
mo
minutes.
sana, miss?
Oo.
Basta din nakuha ang 8 gani, miss.
Dara
1035 plus 8 times 50.
ang production time per piece.
Okay, miss. Thank you, miss.
Oo. Sige. Asa na tayo? Isa ha?
7 hours, man.
7 hours and pila?
15.
And
15 minutes.
15 minutes. Okay. 15 minutes. Dayon, so pati yung question. Calculate the operator's efficiency. So, efficiency of operator. Efficiency of operator That is the standard time
Minus observed time, char.
times 100 over the actual time.
Actual time is ito ng 6 hours.
Mm-mm. Actual time. So, i-convert to siya into kuan pila man tong 6 hours and 30 minutes. Sige, wait sa ha. Atong ikuan daw. Equals our standard time there is pila to 435, no?
Oo.
435 times 100 over the actual time katong ganina pila man to?
400.
Na,
435.
no, kuan katong 6 hours daraan.
6 hours and 30 minutes, ha?
Mm.
Oo, okay. So,
390, miss.
Okay, that's good.
390.
390, no?
90 minutes.
390.
9.
Oh, okay, 390.
390.
Okay, 390. Okay, 390. So that means how much is the efficiency of the operator? So, no efficiency
111.
siya, more iyang performance rating. So, ang iyang efficiency kay equals to
111.5.
oh,
111.5%.
5%. Okay.